Good evening. Thank you for coming. Can everyone online hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Vikram. Thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We have Olga is absent tonight and Vikram is attending virtually online. A little closer. Am I sharing with you? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. How's that? Can you guys hear me back there? Okay. I would like to start off by making 2 amendments to the agenda. Item 8, executive session. There will not be action during the executive session. So we're removing action from the executive session. And also adding the addition of board comments after executive session. It got left out by mistake. So 2 things, we'll remove action from the executive session and addition of board comments after executive session. Is there any discussion or questions about this?
I move to approve the agenda with those changes.
I'll second.
All right. Could we move this to a roll call vote, please?
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Here.
Penny Love Hensley,
Aye.
Vikram Kotwani,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
and Christy Morgan.
Aye. Motion passes. I do have one announcement today. Based on comments going around, I wanted to clarify a rumor that we have the second highest paid ED in Washington. I'm not sure who's giving talking points, but that is not true. King County Library comes in first with $253,000. Snow Isle, $243,000. Multnomah County is not Washington, but we often compare ourselves to them. They come in at $231,000. Seattle, $229,000, and FVRL is $195,000. I obviously can't speak about ongoing negotiations, but I did want to clear that up. We'll move on to public comments. You will have 2 minutes to speak. You each get 1 2-minute turn. We'll take 1 hour to hear comments. Please no clapping or noise between speakers, no inappropriate language. Be respectful of one another. Direct your comments toward the board, not the audience. Please don't play recordings or videos. And when you get to the microphone, please say your name.
The first 3 speakers for this evening are online. Number 1 is Connie Scott, followed by Jude Jacobs, followed by Daria Ruggles. Connie Scott.
Connie Scott, are you ready for comment?
Jude Jacobs.
Sure. I don't see a timer. Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. Hello, my name is Jude. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm here to speak in support of Drag Queen Story Hour as well as providing a living wage. You know, I think that this is something where Drag Queen Story Hour is definitely a benefit to our community. It promotes inclusivity. It encourages acceptance, teaching kids to accept people who may be different from themselves, promotes empathy and understanding, and supports literacy. It encourages a love for reading and learning in children through storytelling, which is a fundamental aspect of library programs. It empowers representation and provides positive representation of the LGBTQ community. And especially for kids who may not see themselves reflected in literature or public events very often, it's important. And it challenges stereotypes. It challenges gender stereotypes by showcasing individuals who defy traditional gender norms. Additionally, I think that it is important to pay a living wage. Paying a living wage reflects commitment to social justice and equity, ensuring that all employees can afford basic necessities and maintain a decent standard of living. We know that it helps prevent burnout, right? Adequate compensation can alleviate financial stress and reduce the risk of burnout among library employees, allowing them to focus on their work and perform more effectively. A well-compensated library staff can better serve the needs of the community, whether through expanded programming, improved collections, enhancing outreach efforts. It helps retain and attract those experienced staff who really serve the community the best, and encourages them to, fosters higher job satisfaction and morale, which is really important for productivity, for positive work environment, and represents our community well. Thank you.
Oh, I have to turn it on. Okay, let's try again. Greetings, honorable members and our executive director. I'm Daria Ruggles. Appreciate you hearing me tonight. I have a proclamation here for you. It's honoring library workers. It was signed by Mayor Ann and Vancouver City Council. Our elected officials and greater community publicly acknowledge the value of our library workers. For 30 years, I have engaged with FVRL. I volunteered for door drops for levy lifts, registered voters, attended groundbreakings, helped name our VA book nook, and I am currently a member of our Friends. During my 13 years employed at FVRL, we had 3 market studies costing tens of thousands of dollars each, the promise to get the data needed to finally pay a fair wage, but every time resulted in the lowest paid workers remaining shamefully so. A year and a half of bargaining and I got 37 cents. My ending wage, $17 an hour. Do you need a market study to tell you that this is not a fair living wage? But FVRL insists they do not pay a living wage, but what the market dictates. FVRL is not a corporation, even as it reflects the disparity and inequity between the lowest paid and admin that some corporations do. So if markets decree that people living in desperate times desperately need a job, FVRL takes advantage. I witnessed a major brain drain of so many talented, dedicated staff. Yet somehow the budget always allows for the highest paid to continue their climb. As a taxpayer, I vote and pay for what makes our community stronger. I am child-free, but always say yes to schools because schools and libraries strengthen our communities for all of us. FVRL is overdue. Honor FVRL workers as community taxpayers and elected officials do. Work with your executive director, your HR, and your budget to make this happen. Give library workers the dignity of a fair living wage. It's time, and thank you. I have your own copy of a proclamation here for you.
Our next line of speakers are Dave Gellis, followed by Emily Losness, followed by Kristen Stagger.
Hi, this is Dave Gellis, a security guard for Cascade Park Library. I'm shooting from the hip tonight, guys, so bear with me. 4 years ago, our lives all got turned upside down with the pandemic, COVID. And the library did the most stand-up thing ever, was they paid their employees for 3.5 months, 100% of their wages. They stood up for us. But when we opened back up, your employees stood up for you. They were out there masked up, gloved up, carrying cleaning supplies in wildfires, smoke, ice, snow. So it's a reciprocal thing. You stood up for us, we stood up for you. 4 years later, here's where we're at now. Rent has almost doubled. When we started this in 2020, gas was $1.80 a gallon. It's $4.30 a gallon now. for a two-bedroom apartment. It was $760 a month. Now it's $1,438. It's a time when we have to look at what we have here and say it's not going to change. I implore the board, the management, Jennifer, all of you to get together and look at what is now an existing wage. We exist. We cannot live in our community, and it's not getting any better. Everybody's joined the greed wagon. We raise our prices because we can, and we're left to try to sift through, and we're counting pennies to see what bills we can pay. Please, if you do anything, look at that and say we have to be able to live in the communities we have our houses. We have to be able to live. I want to thank you all again.
Emily Losness.
Hi there, my name is Emily and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you to the board for letting me speak here tonight in support of bringing back Drag Queen Story Hour. Public libraries are spaces dedicated to knowledge and learning, for expanding our understanding of the world and the people, past and present, who call it home. Oh, sorry, is there somebody else talking? Okay. Like humans, libraries are hardwired for connection. We can get lost in great stories, seeing ourselves in characters who were conceptualized hundreds or even thousands of years ago, and we see how the past has laid the foundation for where we are today. Libraries teach us that in this great big world, that while every story is unique, we can find connection, a part of ourselves in every one of them. This is what makes libraries so scary for people who want to make our world smaller, darker, and less compassionate than it really is. This idea that we might find some similarities with those we've been taught to fear. This argument against Drag Queen Story Hour is the antithesis of what public libraries stand for. Drag queens in this space teach children that love is love, to treat people with kindness, and to never judge a book by its cover. Is that not what libraries are for? I'm sure today we'll hear how drag queens are trying to indoctrinate children with their ideologies. As someone who has actually been to a Drag Queen Story Hour, I can tell you firsthand that these scary ideologies are love, kindness, acceptance, and connection. There will be people tonight that say that drag queens invoke gender confusion in kids and that it is harmful by nature. This doesn't happen. If your kid was questioning their gender, they were questioning it long before they saw someone in a wig reading "If You Give a Mouse a Cookie." What they did see is that this person in a wig was loved and accepted by their community, which isn't harmful, it's healing. This kind of revelation of recognizing that you're not alone and that people will love you and embrace you with open arms isn't harmful, it's life-saving. Thank you, and pay people what they're worth.
Hello, my name is Kristen Stagger. I am a public services assistant for FVRL and a WPEA union member. I am not a librarian, nor have I ever studied library science. Yet, unlike most other library systems, my job description requires me to answer reference questions, a task usually reserved for librarians. FVRL defines a reference question as any interaction that involves helping someone find information or books to read, or showing them how to find information using materials in the collection, databases including the catalog, the internet, or another agency. A few weeks ago, a patron asked for help finding information. Being the highest seniority person on staff at the time, I took on the task. For privacy reasons, I won't go into detail about her request, but it was complicated and required cross-referencing several different government websites. I floundered and tried to type, read, and research as quickly as I could to make up for the fact that I didn't really know what I was doing. I wish that my branch's only librarian hadn't left for the day. The patron waited for me. I was relegated to giving her my meager offerings of offices to contact, as I was unable to find the information that she was actually looking for. I did my best, but I feel disheartened and frustrated that the community is not getting service from trained professionals, and that my fellow employees are left to struggle with tasks that they have little or no training to perform. FVRL's employees are working far above their pay grade. Our customer service suffers as a result of undertrained, overworked, and underpaid employees. I need the Board of Trustees to work with the operating budget so we can find a way to invest more in staff. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Melissa Perez, Narissa Eckerson, followed by Len.
My name is Melissa Perez. I'm a WPEA member and an FVRL employee. Library employees bring the library to life. Without you, we do not have the ability to serve our patrons and communities. This quote is from an email from our executive director, Jennifer, dated today. We FVRL employees are the communities we're serving. We live in the same low-income housing. We shop at the same discount grocery stores. Since my time here, I have frequently delayed picking up necessary medications due to not being able to afford them. I've eaten rice for multiple meals because I can't afford to go out grocery shopping every week. And due to the ever-increasing cost of living, I'm still 3 months behind on my power bill. I'd like to stay a part of the community that I help serve, but right now I can't afford to. I need the Board of Trustees to work with the Executive Director, HR, and to review the operating budget so we can find a way to invest more money in staff and the community that we serve.
Good evening. My name is Narissa Eckerson. I've worked with FVR Libraries and served as a shop steward for our union WPEA for 6 years. At last month's board meeting, you heard from many staff and community members demanding a living wage for our library workers. I imagine that may have been overwhelming and at times felt like a personal attack. Through no fault of your own, you've inherited a decades-long problem that needs amending. You're all in a position of great opportunity to do the staff of this library district a good turn and catch up from years of sliding further into poverty with the wage stagnation here at FVR Libraries. We are proud of the work we do serving this community. We want to be proud of how our employer compensates us for our service. It's not lost on our staff that the library's personnel budget is often underspent and moved into reserves, which is spent on many things, including new libraries. I'm presenting you with over 600 signatures from our community at large in support of these public servants making a living wage. One of the signees says, paying all your staff enough to live on is the right thing to do. It's also the smart thing to do. Your staff are worth more than any equipment or resource. They are what makes a library a library. We need you, the Board of Trustees, to work with the Executive Director and review the operating budget so we can find a way to invest more public funding into our staff. Thank you.
I like move this down. I don't know. Oh, it doesn't. Cool. I still don't know. I've done this 4 times. Don't know how to use this. Okay, cool. My name is Len. My pronouns are he, they. I've worked for FVRL for 2 years, and I'm here today to speak about FVRL's low wages and how they affect me. This month, my only scheduled day off was March 9th. It's not that I didn't try to pick up a shift on this day, just that the shifts I tried to pick up across my 3 other jobs were denied. This means that out of 31 days in March, I will be scheduled 30. This is out of necessity. I'm not sure if anyone I'm addressing has worked every day for a month, let alone has done this for nearly 2 years like I have. It's draining, it's exhausting, it's mentally incapacitating, and it's something that ruins my relationships with everyone I know because I don't have the time or the capacity to engage with and process my own life, let alone someone else's. I live with a roommate who's moving out in September. This means I will have to move as well because I can no longer afford what will be $1,800 a month plus $130 in water, $55 garbage, $150 in electric.
This together takes up nearly my entire full-time wage from FVRL and says nothing about any other bills or food I may need. My only option because of my income is low-income housing. I no longer have a partner to split rent with as I did when I moved here, and I'm not in a position to take another roommate. I'm 31 years old. I should not have to rely on a relationship or a roommate or family in order to pay all of my bills and have stable housing. My library work is my career, and I should be compensated like it is. I should be able to make enough money to afford days off. WPEA's proposal will allow me to breathe. I read what we're asking for and I cried because what it means to me is that I'll be able to survive with minimal extra work. 2 days per month, maybe, as opposed to every single weekend. Having 6 days off in a month would allow me to rest, and FVRL's proposal would not allow this. I need the Board of Trustees to work with the Executive Director and review the operating budget. Thank you.
Next three speakers are Carmen, followed by David Alvey, followed by Abby Hart.
My name is Carmen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a full-time FVRL employee, WPEA union member, and a resident of Clark County. I'd like to address the board regarding management's most recent salary offer that our union rejected. It might seem that the percentage they offered was very generous and that we should accept. If circumstances were different, if we were starting from a well-paid hourly wage, we might also agree that it is a fair offer. But when so many of our members are so far below what is considered low income, it becomes obvious why we cannot accept. The small percentage increase that management offered would barely make a dent in the low-income pay we are currently receiving. 97% of our members are currently considered low income. Many are actually in the very low and extremely low income categories. If we were to adopt management's latest proposal, we would only have 6 members earning what is considered a living wage or at or above low income for Clark County. The proposal WPEA is suggesting would still leave 6 at or above low income, but would put an additional 23 members only 1 to 3,000 from that mark. It's not perfect and we'd still have a long way to go, but it would be a start. What our membership is asking for is not outrageous if we take a look at the starting wages at other libraries in our area. I've collected current job postings and pay scale charts from 8 public libraries in Oregon and Washington. All were comparable to our current PSA and SLA positions. The average starting wage of the 11 positions was $21.27 per hour. I'm happy to share these with the board. What we're asking for is not greedy, outrageous, or unique. We are asking to be valued for our service to our communities, along with the dignity of earning a living wage. We are asking to be paid a wage where we don't have to rely on family or public assistance in order to live in the communities we serve. We need the Board of Trustees to work with the Executive Director and review the operating budget so we can find a way to invest more money in staff. Thank you.
David, I'm going to give you your warning right now because in the past you went against our guidelines. So make sure that you don't curse or go against our guidelines. We're good to go. Okay.
Heard. I'm not addressing fascists tonight, just workers. So I think we'll be good. My name is David Alvey. Pronouns are they, them. First off, I'd like to thank the Fort Vancouver library workers for the tireless work that you do and for your dedication. The work you do cannot be praised enough. Your role is crucial in keeping our libraries safe and providing accessibility and ensuring that everyone finds what they're after here, whether the medium or subject. With Washington, with Fort Vancouver Regional Library having the 4th highest paid director, I guess, it seems only feasible that you would be paid like the 4th highest workers as well, right? I think we all stand in solidarity here with you. And I think we're all here for your fight for a living and respectable wage. To the board, who also work to ensure that our libraries are safe and inclusive, and the work you do for our community, I implore you to do the right thing and provide these essential employees with the wage that they deserve. You know, we have a saying, whose side are you on?
Good evening. My name is Abby Hart, she, her pronouns, and I'm the lead negotiator for the awesome WPEA members here at the library. Since the last board meeting, we've had 2 bargaining sessions for WPEA and the library to negotiate a new CBA. While management may feel that it is not fiscally responsible to review the operating budget and carve out more funding to invest in staff wages, the frontline staff know that is not true. The frontline staff have seen FVRL invest millions of dollars into new buildings and into wages for the administration team at this library. Speaking frankly, I've negotiated about 20 different union contracts in my career so far, including contracts for 4 other public libraries in Washington state. I understand how difficult funding for local libraries can be, given initiatives in our state that severely limit how much money the library can ask for taxpayers to invest in their local library. I have a lot of sympathy for that predicament when bargaining around library budgets. But here's what I want you to know. Of all 5 libraries where I've represented workers and negotiated their contracts, I have not seen the significant wage gap between the administration team and the lowest paid frontline worker that I see at FVRL. I have also not encountered a compensation plan which is as complicated and convoluted as that which FVRL uses to pay WPEA employees. I also want to respond to the chair's opening comments in our meeting today. I'm honestly so heartened to hear the board compare wages for their staff to the wages at Multnomah County Library System, because my understanding is that management has not been willing to compare union staff salaries to the sibling library, and this feels like a step in the right direction. Regarding Seattle Public's ED's salary, I am also heartened to hear that FVRL feels this library is a comparable library for understanding the market value of wages. Since Seattle is not typically considered comparable to a regional library system like this one. As a municipal library system, SPL has access to funding through the city, which provides a significant buffer for budget management. WPEA looks forward to bringing both of these comparables forward in wage discussions in the future. Thank you.
Our next 3 are Alexis Vandam, followed by Quill, followed by Randy Schmidt.
Hello, my name is Alexis Vandam. I've never stood up here before. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the LGBTQ community, both in terms of literature and in other ways as well. Now, here's the thing. I could stand up here and cite the same statistics that people always cite whenever we have meetings like this or meetings in front of state houses, or talk about any of the thousands of bills that have been passed trying to restrict our community in many, many, many different ways. But instead, I'm going to start by focusing on myself and then branch out just a little bit. I moved from Texas. My family moved from Texas in March of 2022 to escape the hatred, at least as much as anyone can these days, to escape book bans and book restrictions, as well as many other things. I don't want that following me here. And I'm pretty sure that other people who have moved for the same reason, like Kai Shapley, an activist from Texas, would probably agree with that. But here's the thing. Nex Benedict didn't have that luxury. Nex, whether or not he was actually killed by the beating that he endured, he still endured it. And he endured it because of hatred. And that hatred is very arguably derived from policy changes and appointments to boards, such as Chaya Rychik's appointment to the board, such as the words from the superintendent named Ryan Walters. But they're not alone in inciting all kinds of hatred against us. Neither are any of the politicians out there, or they're not alone either. There is a mass cultural movement to dehumanize us across the board, and I don't think that anybody in this state should stand for it. I think we should do better than that. And I'll wrap up by saying this. We cannot give these people an inch, and the reason why is in March 2021, the argument was whether or not to ban 6th grade trans girls from playing volleyball. In March 2023, it was whether or not to exterminate the community. Thank you.
Don't worry, I cleaned out my folder. Hi, my name is Cole Onstead and my pronouns are they, them. I'm here to speak in support of Drag Queen Story Hour as a genderqueer member of the library community. 2023 saw book challenges skyrocket in public libraries by 92%, according to a report released by the American Library Association. Titles representing the voices and lived experiences of LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC individuals made up 47% of those targeted in censorship attempts. Opponents of Drag Queen Story Hour have stated that they have no wish to remove books from the shelves, just children's access to them, which is still censorship. The ALA maintains that while children have the right to access all library materials, it is the parent's right and responsibility to restrict what services, materials, facilities, or programs their children have access to. Services like Reader's Advisory, materials like Flamer, This Book is Gay, and Tango Makes Three. Facilities with unsupervised but filtered internet access. Programs like Drag Queen Story Hour. Drag Queen Story Hour is a vital program that teaches kids about gender identity in an age-appropriate manner. Parents who do not approve of Drag Queen Story Hour do not have to bring their children to any Drag Queen Story Hour programs. Please allow the staff of FVRL Libraries to present Drag Queen Story Hour and have the district live up to the ideals espoused in FVRL Libraries equity statement. Thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Can you just say your name?
Oh, Randy Schmidt. The LGBT community, especially the two community, wants the balance of us all to accept their claims at face value without question. Recent revelations, though, show this may not be the wisest choice. Specifically, I'm talking about WPATH, the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, which I call WPATH. They have been cited by the T community as the absolute authority on gender affirming care, and that the science for gender affirming care is absolutely settled. Recent leaked WPATH files, however, reveal a very damning story. The leaked files clearly show that the gender affirming care, as it is called, leads to painful complication, regrets, permanent body altering procedures and outcomes, and even life-threatening conditions such as cancers caused by the care. The leaked files show that WPATH knows of these harmful outcomes, yet continues to ignore the complications of the treatments they advocate. Why? WPATH does this to push their own harmful agenda instead of developing safe care for this confused population that they claim to love and care for. This same community continues to advocate for Drag Queen Story Hours for toddlers and preschoolers, small children, so they can feel inclusion. What is never stated is how a man dressed as a sexualized character of a woman reading sexually confusing literature makes toddlers or preschoolers feel included. The statements are like those from WPATH. They're not based on reality, and quite frankly, unfortunately, they are lies. So I urge this board to approve a policy banning Drag Queen Story Hour from the library properties to protect the children of our community from this harmful ideology. Thank you.
Our next three are Margot Logan, Gary Wilson, and Sydney Batchelor Strickland.
Hi, I'm Margot Logan. I would encourage the board to add more security positions to the budget. I am from Multnomah County, and it's being held up as a paragon of how it should be here. Since last week, now, any day of the week, I may not be able to go to my library. So the workers over there got the $21 wage hourly. And then after that follow-up, they got being able to opt out. So now they can opt out of being the person in charge for the day. And if they opt out, that means any library in Multnomah County on any day, or maybe even more than one, will not be open because they have opted out. So I would encourage the board to do that. Now, the other interesting thing about this union that I researched today is, and I don't know if this is other libraries in Washington, but in Highland and in Yakima contracts, they are paying library workers or whatever entity this is $1,000 for each time they get a vaccine booster. I don't know what to say. I mean, my history has been with unions in terms, and even organizing unions, but some of this stuff, it just seems a little far beyond the pale. And also workers who go to get vaccinated get leave, a 4-hour leave to go do that. And if they should have side effects, then they have a leave that will pay for that as well. So just to look at the whole picture, and I love your library. I actually come over here more than I go to my local library. So thank you.
Hi, Gary Wilson. Thank you, library board members, for your service, and please continue to err on the side of caution concerning your most vulnerable patrons, the children. And usually I stay until the end of the meeting, but I've got a Zoom meeting shortly, so, but hopefully everything works out with your labor agreement. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sid Strickland. I am 73, a second wave feminist, and a lifelong library supporter. I thank you for your service on the board. I had my issue that I wanted to bring up tonight. I've discussed with Director Giltrop, and I have to say, it's very impressive. I called her and left a message with my phone number, never expecting to hear back from her. And within an hour, she called me back, and we had a really nice discussion. She was very forthcoming, very transparent, and very responsive. So I thank her for that. And also the library staffs. I go to the Cascade Park Library several times a week, as does my husband. So what I'm here about is Women's History Month. And March is Women's History Month. And it might surprise you to learn, it certainly did surprise me to learn, that as an institutional matter, Women's History Month is not recognized by the Fort Vancouver Library or any of the branches. There are 6 categories that are recognized in all the branches. Women's History Month is not one of them. So last year, at the Cascade Park Library, I thought, well, it must be an oversight. So I threw my voice around, and sure enough, they put up a few books. This year, I kept waiting for them to put up something. They've got a lovely display right by the front door. And for the first 14 days of the month, it was Pie Month. All kinds of pies. Pie the math, pie the cherry, pie the recipes, pie the this and that. And so I went up and asked about it again, and they said, I said, where's the women's history? Oops, I'm out of time. Where's the women's history? They said, we don't have it. They didn't have it at the main library either. We need to recognize this. Thank you.
Yeah, we still have time left in the hour. That is everyone who signed up for public comment. Is there anyone who has not made a comment that would like to still go online or in person?
Wendy Fiser.
Hi, thank you all. I want to thank all the members of the Fort Vancouver Regional Library Board and for your time today. My name is Wendy Fiser and I use she, her pronouns. Today's my first time actually attending a board meeting, and I'm here in support of our libraries for their access to literature for all populations, representing all members of our community. As we continue to hear stories in the media about books being banned across the country, I want to thank the Fort Vancouver library system for honoring my requests for new books and the ability to read what I want, when I want, in the format that I want. I hope we do not have a book ban list, and I just want to thank you all for the access that you've provided for our community and for my children and my family. In addition, please bring back Drag Queen Story Hour. I really want to take my children to this event, and I'm in support of living wages for our library staff, even if it means raising my taxes. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Did I hear someone? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, come on up and then say your name, please.
My name is Dana. I go by they, them pronouns. Sorry if I'm not spoken for a long time in front of anybody. I'm a social worker. One thing I do know is when somebody is able to have their basic needs met, they serve other people better. You have to have your basic needs met if you're going to be able to accomplish anything. If somebody's at work and concerned about being able to eat dinner in the evening, how efficient is that? So even in terms of what it gives you or the library itself, it benefits everybody for the workers to be taken care of, right? Less sick days, less call-outs for various reasons, less accidents, less worker comp claims, less all of those things to take into consideration. Okay. And I believe everybody is valuable, LGBTQIA plus. Nobody's value should be based on that. Children need to be able to have a safe space to learn and to explore themselves, no matter what it is. One of the healthiest things that a preschooler can do is to play dress up and examine what roles they like, right? And that's one of the basic human development things that you learn if you're ever in that, is that they need a chance to openly explore who they are so that they can find out what it is. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense.
EB.
Hi, my name is Evan. I spoke at the last board meeting actually, and I just really want to reiterate the points that my colleagues made earlier about how we are suffering to pay our bills, and we just want to be treated like actual human beings that matter. And yeah, so I'm just reiterating those points, and I really hope that the Board of Trustees and the Executive Director can work together and just like listen to us, truly listen to our stories, because it feels like, based on the return the proposal that FVRL made, it really feels like we're not being heard. So thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes our public comment. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I move this to a roll call vote, please.
Marie Coffey.
Aye.
Megan Dugan.
Aye.
Vikram Kotwani.
Aye.
Penny Love Hensley.
Aye.
Marianne Duncan Cole.
Aye.
And Christy Morgan.
Aye, motion passes. We'll move on to reports. Do you need some time, or do you want me to give a minute? Okay. We'll move on to reports next. First up is FVRL organizational report with Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. In your packet are the operational highlights from February. And I'm going to, I apologize that there aren't page numbers. So I'll try to take you back to the section on statistics. But before I get there, there is a photo in here of the progress on the Woodland Community Library. And if you've been by there since this photo was taken, it's just amazing how quickly it is going up, and it's going up well. And I just wanted to share, I attended the Friends of the Woodland Library meeting this month, and people that have worked long and hard for years fundraising, telling their stories, and they're so thrilled with the progress. And they've raised a tremendous amount of money, almost 10% of the project cost the Friends have raised, along with help from the foundation, of course. But one lady in particular, I believe her name was Anne, said, "I'm just so thrilled that this library is going to open before I die." That's how important her work has been. And I just thought that was, it really touched me and has stuck with me, and is really exciting to see how thrilled that community is going to be to get a new library. But on the statistics, February 24 total circulation and visitors, just great to see that our visitor count is up almost 19% year over year. That's really huge. It shows the continuing coming back numbers. And then also circulation, total circulation being up 8.29%, primarily due to the e-resources continuing to grow. So that, yes. Anyone that walks into the library.
Sarah could check out a book, but maybe not even.
Whatever they're coming to do, meeting, program, checking out books, sitting and staring at the wall, whatever they want to do, they're visiting the library.
Thank you.
Yes. And I am not going to share my normal foundation updates, because we have our executive director of the foundation next up. But any questions on the report before you? Okay.
No, but I do like the new statistics. That gives us a good idea of what's going on in the libraries. Thank you.
Yes.
I actually did have one question, Jennifer, and it might be for Ruth, but I got my book, The Revolutionary Reads book, last month, and I read it.
Yes.
And I know the program's on April 17th, but I don't know what time it is.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
At the Vancouver Community Library or online. Right, Justin? Okay, great.
Any other questions? Marie, did you have anything? All right, we can move on then with the foundation report with Rick Smithard. Thank you.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, give you some updates on the foundation. Start with the best news first, which is that we have received the contracts for the 2 grants that we have for the Woodland Community Library. One's for $2 million and the other one's for $500,000. So we hope that will pave the way that we can start presenting construction expenses back to the state and get reimbursed for that and pass it on to the library district. So we're very pleased with that. It has been a long and involved project. Simply because of the changes in the scope of the project. We had to go back to the state every time the size or expense of the project changed. So, and surprisingly, the state is not the quickest group to respond to certain things. But I just wanted you to know we're excited about that. I think Jennifer's excited about that. I think the accounting department is excited about that. So it's very good. Also wanted to make mention of, we've had some fundraisers recently. We had a fundraiser at the Beaches Restaurant in partnership with them, which they're a great community partner. And we want to thank everybody who participated in that. I was there for a short time, but I know Penny was there. I know Marie was there. I assume some of the others of you may have been there. I also want to thank Jennifer and her staff who came down and enjoyed Beaches. And appreciate that. And there may be people out there that came to Beaches, so thank you as well. And so it was a great fundraiser, and we don't know how much yet because they're behind on sending checks out. So, but we will get that number and get it out to you. I also want to let you know that we're in the process of filling out an application for another $2 million grant for the state. This one will be for Washougal, and so we will submit that, and hopefully we will be lucky. And I mean that because this program does give preferential points for projects that involve a building that's on the historic register, local, national, or federal, state. And and it also goes to libraries that are located in financially distressed communities. And Washougal doesn't qualify for either of those. It's a new construction. It's not an old building. And number two, it's not considered by fiscally distressed. So, but we will do our best and we will make our best case and apply for another one. Also want to let you know, we're bringing back Friends Fair, which is an event that we do that brings all of the Friends of the Library groups together. And we do it as kind of a celebration to recognize all the time and effort that they put into making the libraries better. And so we'll be having that on April 13th, which is a Saturday, just up the road here at Generations Church on the other side of the highway. And so we're inviting representatives from each of the Friends groups to come, share some of the successes and challenges that they've been experiencing. And we'll also be able to give Jennifer an opportunity to meet and engage with them and find out what they're thinking and share what the vision of the district is. And then we hope to be able to provide some ideas of the foundation and what we have planned. So we want you to know that we invite the Board of Trustees. If anybody would like to come to that, let us know. We invite a foundation board to come to that. We also invite the branch managers to come to that. So. Okay, but we do need an RSVP, so we have a head count for meals. So I also want to talk a little bit about the Revolutionary Reads program that you were just mentioning, because we're excited about that, and the foundation is helping with that, fund that. So bringing in the author and the speakers. So we really would hope that you could be there and come to the Columbia Room on April 17th. And so we'd love to see you there. I also want to talk about, we're going to be doing the Love Your Library fundraiser, which if you haven't been, you should. It's going to be at the Red Barn in Woodland, and it's to raise money for the Woodland Library Building Project. And if you haven't been, you're missing out, because it's an incredible experience, and there's food, music, there's wine. There's also a number of things going on, and a silent and live auction. And so we're excited about that. I do need to let you know that if you want to buy early bird tickets and save some money, you need to order them by March 31st. So after that, they go from $50 to $60. But come up, have a great time, hang out in the barn with us, and raise some money for the Woodland Library. Okay, then I also want to talk about the Authors and Illustrator Dinner. You say, but isn't that in the fall? Yes, it is, but we have to start planning now. So, and I know some of you came to the 2023 Authors and Illustrator Dinner with David Baldacci. We're planning, we have the date, a tentative date, and we also have the venue. So we're going to be doing that on a Thursday, October 17th at the Hilton again. And we're very excited about that. We're working right now to recruit and retain a speaker for the program, but it promises to be another great Authors and Illustrator Dinner. So think ahead, mark that on your calendars. Try not to go on vacation. So I also want to tell you, I have, you can see the slide, beautiful dinner. This is also to remind you all of how the foundation and the Friends operate. The foundation is the 501c3 umbrella for all of the Friends groups, which means that we work with them all to make sure that all of the regulations regarding 501c3s are followed, and that we do everything the right way. And so that's, we register with the state to be charitable organizations and to solicit in the state of Washington. And we take care of that. We provide directors and officers insurance for the foundation and all of the Friends groups. And so we're all one big happy family. I think I can get Dennis and Tanya to agree to that. Yeah, big happy family. Yeah, okay. And so wanted to let you know, just in case anybody isn't familiar with that setup. Okay, also going on, we had just completed our annual audit. And I wanted to let you know that when we go through an audit, it's for all of the Friends groups, the foundation's financial records, all of our investment accounts, and we have 15 Friends groups, and we have 26 investment accounts. And so the auditor comes in and goes over every little detail of all those transactions all the way through, make sure that we document them, make sure that we thank donors. And I want you to let you know that the result of that was that they told us there were no findings and no management recommendations. They once again gave thumbs up to all the Friends groups for keeping such good records and to the foundation. So that's the audit, and it's done, and the taxes are filed. And if you're curious, we now have that on our website, so you can go to the foundation's website, and all of our tax reports and also our financials are listed there. Yes, I would be open. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Next. And so this is something I wanted to show you because, as I said, we do investment accounts for all of the Friends groups. This one is a chart from 2007 to December of 2007 to December of 2023. And we use this as a proxy for looking at how we're doing in raising money for the Friends, because in that entire time, the Friends of White Salmon didn't add any money to that account and didn't take any money out of that account. So what you're seeing there is a change based on investment earnings. And so that we kind of keep track of that, and you can pretty much pick out where 2008 was. You can pick it. Yeah, that's exactly where it is. And you can pick out where COVID was, and you can pick out different things in that chart where different crashes happen in the market. But overall, we're very pleased that, instead of selling books at $1 at a time, their money is making money. And so that's kind of the arrangement that we've made with the Friends groups, and most of them have investment accounts. And also, because of the size of the foundation's portfolio, the Friends don't pay any sales load to invest their money. And we have a very minimal a management fee that goes on there, and that we have absolutely incredible financial advisors and an amazing investment committee of volunteers who help oversee that. So that's what I have, unless you have some questions, but we've been busy. Yep. Thanks.
Any questions? No?
Well, I'd like to know who the musical guest is for the Love Your Library event.
Judy?
Oh, I love Fading by Nine.
Yep. So if people didn't catch that, it's Misty Mamas, right? And Fading by Nine are the two musical groups that will be performing at Love Your Library.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was a good report. Thank you. Next up will be January financial statements with Kristen Smith.
Good evening, board. It's a pleasure to be back presenting financial information to you tonight. If you would look at the cash balance report, which is the first page of your report, it looks like it's not good news. Cash balance has decreased net of $2.5 million. However, this is within our expectations for the first part of the year. If you look, revenues were 141,000, expenses were about 2.6 million. Expenses exceeded revenues almost 18 to 1. As we have shared with you, our operating reserve goal is to maintain somewhere between 60 and 90 days of our annual operating budget. So if you look at the middle of the page there, we opened the year with about 2.7 months, and we closed January with just over 2 months, 2.03 points of a month. So we are hovering right there at that 60-day mark by the time we closed January. Since we're reporting retrospectively, we are in March and looking at January's financials. Just to kind of give you a current picture, we did just finish up reconciling our February statements, and we are down another 1.5 million in February. Now, this is within expectations because, as you know, our largest revenue source is property taxes, and we get that in April-May timeframe and then October-November timeframe. So the use of that operating reserve The reason we request it is because we know we're going to consume a lot of it at the beginning of the year. We did, so you can, the middle of the section is the operating reserves, what's happening there. The bottom section of that page is our specific project or specific objective reserves. And as you can see, the only reserve that we had use of in January was the Woodland Reserve. And we did use for construction contractor payments just over $340,000 of that reserve. But overall, we still have $10.4 million in reserves. And I know later on the agenda, there's further discussion of those operating reserves. If we look at the revenues, which is the next page, as I highlighted kind of at the cash level, we did only have $141,000 worth of revenue for the month. And again, this is typically a low month in revenues to start with. We did have some trickle in of property taxes, and our third largest revenue source was our interest income at $44,000 this month. However, keep in mind, as we use up those operating reserves, our cash is going to go down. So our interest earnings are not going to stay as high. So that's not going to continue, I think, until we start seeing those deposits again coming in April and May. We do assume in our budget, of course, that when we present the columns to you, that we're presenting 1/12 of the budget, which would make you think we should be about 8.3% of budget at the end of January. However, that assumes everything comes in evenly, and we know that that doesn't happen. So at revenues, total revenues were only at about 0.43% of the budget, but don't panic, it'll come in. Just not today. If you move on to the last page, which is expenditures, there's a little bit more information to share here. Again, we do assume in our budget presentation to you that we are going to get 1/12 of our budget and expenses. However, the only thing that really does come in pretty consistent is our payroll, our salaries and benefits expenses. So as you can see, we are almost spot on target there. We're at 7.93% of budget. So that's just shy of 0.4% of that 8.33 we would expect to see. The one line item that looks a little over budget there is that benefit for life, long-term disability, and accident and death disability. I will share that I've reviewed those payments month over month, and they are consistent with the prior month. So I think we may have been short on our budget for that, but I know we're monitoring several other budget adjustments, and probably in summer, fall, we might be coming back to realign some budget adjustments based off of those things. Another item to call out, if you move down one category, is that professional materials and technology, professional collection, and technology. This is at 14.91% of budget. But again, we made some payments early in January that are membership payments that last the entire year. So when we pay them early in January, it does spike above our expected budget. Finally, if you look down at the bottom in the other charges for services area, a few items to note here. Repairs and maintenance is at 13.59% of the budget. I think I shared with you at the last board meeting that line item consists of not only repairs and maintenance for our physical buildings, but also our technology assets. And we do have maintenance contracts that come due in January for those. So we did pay our Great Plains, which is our financial accounting software system, in January. And we also paid for a software maintenance for an interlibrary loan system. So those did spike those charges up in January. But again, we hope that things level off after those January payments in that area. The miscellaneous dues is also up compared to budget. That's at 10.2% of budget there. And that was our Urban Library Council membership that we pay in January that lasts for the 12 months. Again, we see that in the capital section, we had no expenditures in that area, but if you look down just the second to bottom row, There was that 340,000 that I mentioned when we were looking at the cash reserve page. And that was a payment for construction at the Woodland Library. And because we are using our reserves for that first, that line item expenditure applies against that $4 million reserve budget that we have there. So overall, we are just at 7% of budget for our expenditures, which does hit that 8.3 that you would expect for January, but you can see there's small fluctuations across the board, but everything's within expectations.
Vikram, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, so first question, Teresa, what part did you review in these statements? Like, did you prepare or review these?
Yes, our firm, TDJ CPA, does prepare these financial statements. They go through an internal review process within our firm, and then I meet with Jennifer, and Jennifer and I review them for accuracy and completeness as well.
Okay, then why is there a footnote saying that you did not perform an audit review or compilation engagement on these financial statements and no assurances provided on them? Why is
Because
that included in there?
we do not audit these financials. Audits, review, and compilation are attestation services, which these do not carry. These are unaudited financial statements because we are not an audit firm, we're a consulting firm. And so we are required by professional standards to include that footnote.
So there is no assurance that what is being provided is accurate in any way, right?
I will say they are accurate. I just can't provide my professional opinion that they're accurate. We do go through an extensive process to prepare these. We pull the general ledger reports, we pull expenditure reports, we pull the bank statements and reconcile the bank statements in order to ensure that everything's going through here is complete and accurate. Other than the fact that we're simply not an audit firm and can't provide that attestation service on these financial statements.
Okay, so Jennifer, that is one thing I had requested, that, who attests or provides any authentication on these reports, right? I was told in the past that we use the external CPA firm to get these audited and reconciled, and then they attest that these are correct based on, even the bank statements that have been, attested before the reconciliations.
So we do, the Fort Vancouver Regional Library does go through an annual audit with the Washington State Auditor's Office. We have prepared the financial statements for submission to them. And we prepared them. They've not been reviewed and submitted to the auditors yet. The deadline for that isn't until May 30th of 2024. But we do prepare that and work in conjunction with the finance staff and Jennifer before those would be submitted. We do also do the bank reconciliation work, and we reconcile that information to the vouchers that are going to be presented to you later in your in the agenda. And then we also, maybe that was in the consent agenda, wasn't it? It's okay. We reconcile the vouchers, we reconcile the bank statements, but again, there's a different level of professional standards that an attestation or audit engagement provides, and we do not provide that service.
Correct. I understand that it's just a CPA service and you are providing partial service, and there is no guarantee that these statements are accurate 100%. Otherwise it would be listed somewhere. When you have specifically put a footnote, disclaimer, that does not make me very comfortable that there is no audit on any of these. Even the state auditor, they have a disclaimer that they do only spot check, and then they rely on the internal audits, stating that, those internal audits should capture everything else.
Can I ask a question to clarify for myself, Vikram? So you're doing the job right now that our financial director has done well, and will do.
Yes,
You're not auditing us.
correct.
So, Vikram, I'm just trying to understand your question. So you're doing that job, and if we had a financial director, they would not be auditing every month. They're giving a report out, and then we get officially audited once a year.
That's correct. So
Okay.
when your financial director
Mhm.
will present, hopefully soon, these financial statements, you will not have this footnote on them because they will be employees and not consultants. But they will still not be audited statements.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Vikram. I just want to make sure I was understanding.
Correct. That
And
that
then-
is that is true. Even when we had our in-house financial person who left, I was told that monthly the bank statements are reconciled by the external CPAs, and then they give that reconciliation attesting that everything is in order. Is that not true?
We do prepare the financial statements. We do prepare the bank reconciliations. We do prepare the voucher report that you're going to see and act upon shortly in the agenda. But we do not audit them. And I think if I could also address the comment that you made earlier, the state auditors do not say that they rely on internal audit. They rely on internal controls, which
Correct.
is a different concept than internal audit because the library does not have an internal audit position. What they do have, that we've talked about before at the last board meeting, you do have an auditing officer. So after every check run, we do work with Jennifer to provide her as your auditing officer every check, every invoice, so that she can match the two together to make sure that everything is complete and accurate, and that what makes it to your voucher report that you'll review momentarily. We then take that in preparation of that voucher report. We do that in preparation with the bank statements so that we can make sure those informations are complete and accurate before we provide you the voucher report. Unfortunately, the financial statements are 1 month behind from the voucher report and the bank reconciliation work that we do to get to the voucher report. But again, there's a different level of service between an audit and engagement and consulting services that we are providing. But all of this information is housed within your Great Plains accounting system. None of it is externally kept or maintained by us. So these reports can all be rerun and re-verified by another individual independent of us. And the auditors will look at that process that we've undergone. They will look at the bank reconciliations on an annual basis when they come in to audit. And when they audit, I'm sure your new finance director, and even us will be more than happy to show you how you could reconcile that December's financials to the audit, because they will look slightly different. But we would be more than happy to map those things for you so you could see how those December financials ultimately made it to the audit. It's just going to be about a 8-month time frame difference.
All right.
Yes, and the county treasurer is actually also the banker, for lack of a better term, for the library. And all disbursements that we make out of that have to be provided in evidence to the county treasurer as well. So they monitor all of those payments that we make as well. They don't audit them either, but nothing comes out of the bank that isn't already reported to them and matched to information that we provide to Jennifer for the auditing officer.
All right. Thank you for explaining.
Jennifer, I have a question. It seems like, and I haven't been on the board that long, but we have done an amazing amount of building construction, which frightened me at first because I know when you build stuff, things happen and you have a little bit bigger bill at the end than you anticipated. Are we going to sit down now as a board and say, okay, here's where we're sitting. We've got a lot more expenses now just maintaining these new buildings and servicing them. And where are we now, and how do we want to look at the future so that we're not telling people, hey, we need to sit down and kind of see how we're existing before we anticipate another construction project. I haven't seen the board really talk about this.
It's on the agenda coming up under the reserve allocation, so we can talk in more detail about that.
Yeah. We'll have to approve this one and then receive and file. Okay. Next in your packet is your approval of claims. These are the claims for the month of February 2024. We have presented to you a listing of those claims, both from what are warrants payable or what we would refer to as checks in the real world, our electronic funds payments. We had a few voids this month. There was with the transition, in February, with the transition of staff, there was a small error that was caught, but after the checks were printed, so we had to void them. So you'll see a few extra voids than we normally have in any given month. Then you have your total there. We have payroll that is presented. We had 2 payrolls, which is pretty standard outside of any special runs that we have to make. And then your other electronic funds transfers that are generally benefit type related payments. So for total, we have $2,099,817.02 of claims. Behind that claim summary report is an entire listing of every payment that was made during the month of February, which will tie out dollar to dollar to the groupings above. So you can review this. You can look for consistency in check numbers and EFT and routing numbers. Also to kind of give you some assurance when we present things to Jennifer, we also include for her the range of numbers that we're getting. So, and the range of numbers that she had in the cycle before so that she can see that there's no gaps that aren't accounted for. So these total transactions for approval will match what's on the voucher at $2,099,871.02. Yes, sorry, I do have on my glasses, but I just wanted to 817.02. So we have we will need an approval on the vouchers, but for the board financial statements, we will just need a motion to receive and file. So it's a little bit different this month than we have before because we want you to be able to acknowledge that you have received those statements.
And the approval of claims still lists that the auditing board trustee needs to sign. That needs to go away now because we last month said that isn't how we're going to proceed. So that's why you need a motion by the board to approve the approval of claims for this period of time, which was February 1st through February 29th. And then a motion to receive and file the financials.
So to be clear, I know that we have to do the motion to receive and file. What was the other motion that we need right now?
Approval of the claims. To approve the claims as presented.
And what's the date?
February 1 through February 29th.
And we won't be doing that every time after this, correct? Because we're going to this new way, right? Okay.
This is the new way. So there will be
2 each time?
Yes.
And there'll be an approval of claims and then receive and file?
Yes.
Each time? Okay.
Yes.
We can, at the board's discretion, move the approval of claims to the consent agenda if you prefer that. And if you want to pull it out of the, of that consent, you can. But that might be a simpler process. You would still see it. It would just be the order in which the packet would be put together.
Okay, let's discuss that. Now would be a good time probably. So I'm saying that the motion to receive and file and the approval of claims going forward would be within the consent agenda. And
not the financial statement.
not the financial,
Just the vouchers.
just the vouchers.
And
And so,
do have, sorry to interrupt,
you're
we
fine.
do have several examples of other municipalities library districts or special purpose districts that do that in their consent agenda. So it's not uncommon for it to be there. And unless there's questions that you have, you could then pull it so you could have a discussion on it before and have a separate approval on that outside the consent agenda items.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, we have always done it as part of the consent agenda because we had a board member reviewing it in the past. And I think that if it's part of our board packet, we should all be looking at it. So I don't have a problem moving it to the consent agenda.
I also think it's a good idea. I mean, we should all be reading our packets for the meeting anyway, so have questions prepared ahead of time. I'd be fine moving it to the consent agenda. Any questions or further discussion? We don't have to vote on that change, or do we have to vote on that change? Okay. And that's the approval of claims, correct? Okay. So right now we are going to vote on moving the approval of claims into the consent agenda going forward. Any further discussion on that? Is there a motion to approve the moving of claims into the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Doing it that way, when do you always get these packages to us?
By Thursday, prior to the board meeting.
Okay. Okay, and those can go out electronically, so it gives us a time, and that would give us then plenty of time early in the next week to question anything, because it would be difficult to do it at the meeting itself. Okay, thank you.
Marianne, you still could ask at the meeting if you had questions, but then it couldn't be part of the consent agenda for that particular meeting. It would just move out.
Exactly, that's why I was being specific about that, because sometimes I have questions that if I can resolve them and they're not an issue in terms of the risk we're taking. Thanks.
Okay, we can move this to a roll call vote.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Approved.
Penny Love Hensley,
Aye.
Vikram Kotwani,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
and Christine Morgan.
Aye, motion passes. Now we'll move forward with the approval of claims for February 1st through February 29th. Approval of claims for February 1st through February 29th. Is there a motion to approve the claims? Shall we table it?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? You move to a roll call vote, please.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Vikram Kotwani,
Aye.
Penny Love Hensley,
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Aye.
and Christine Morgan.
Aye, motion passes. And finally, for this part, we'll move on to the January 2024 financial statements. Is there a motion to receive and file the January 2024 financial statements as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Just one request that if any board member has a question which is being submitted for these statements, then everybody on the board be copied, because we might have similar questions, and by the time we get to it, if one has asked, that's good enough.
Yes, so if you ask questions between the time you receive the statements until the meeting itself, we can repeat those questions and answers at the board meeting.
Okay, that's good too. Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Okay, we can move this to a roll call vote, please.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Okay.
Penny Love Hensley,
Aye.
Vikram Katwani,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Christy Morgan.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to the Three Creeks Community Library presentation with Elizabeth Moss.
Well, welcome to the Three Creeks Library. We are so excited to have you back here tonight. And I'd like to share what 2023 has brought us. Next slide. So the Three Creeks Library opened in 2002, and these are some pictures that Cassandra from our CMD department was able to provide for this presentation. You can see some very similar things, but it's also changed a lot. In 2002, if you wanted to check out an ebook, you couldn't. If you wanted to check out an audiobook, you could choose between a CD or an audio cassette. And if you wanted to watch a movie from the library, you were checking out a VHS. And I want to give a thanks to Brenda Cameron, who gave me some of the insights of what the library was like back in 2002. But now it's 2024, but we're going to talk about 2023, and I'm going to share some numbers with you because Three Creeks loves numbers. We love numbers so much. We are the only library in the entire district to put a number in our name. We are named for the cougar, the whipple, and the salmon creek that are all in the area. So let's talk about circulation. In 2023, we circulated or checked, these are checkouts, sorry, circulations in the next slide. We had 290,000 checkouts, which is a huge number. So let's visualize it. Let's take all of those books we checked out, stretch them out in a line end to end, and we could reach 1 mile beyond the North Bonneville Community Library. Now, circulation is even better. Next slide. If you include all of our circulation, we're over 561,000, which means we would stretch all of our items from the Three Creeks Library to 7 miles beyond the White Salmon Valley Community Library. So we've been checking out a lot of books and movies and other materials, which is great. Let's go to the next slide. Our filled holds. We could stretch out our 83,849 holds to 1 mile beyond the Battleground Library. Now, these are just numbers, but each of these checkouts, each of these items has a story behind it. Next slide. So, for example, our world language collection. We have a wonderful world language collection, including picture books and board books, which in the past were in the nonfiction adult section, and the kids ones were at the very, very top shelf. So even if a kid figured out where they were, they couldn't get it without help. So midway through 2023, we took our picture books, board books, and beginning reader books, we moved them into the children's collection. Now I can tell you that we circled almost 500 more titles in 2023 than 2022, which is a 65% increase. But what I want to tell you about is the mother who saw we started a Ukrainian collection, and she started crying because she was able to bring part of her culture and her language to her kids, even though they were in America and everything was strange and weird. She could read to her child in her own language. Or the little boy who grabbed a Spanish book and he came up to me and says, "My daddy can read this book to me." And he checked it out so he could spend some time with his dad reading a book in Spanish. And it's those stories that are behind all of the numbers that we're. But let's do some more numbers. Next slide. We had a lot of, we love numbers. Three Creeks. We had a lot of visitors to the library. We had 144,692, which is a 22.7% increase from 2022. In fact, it's so many visitors. If you took the Moda Center where the Portland Trailblazers play, we could fill it almost 7.5 times. That's how many visitors we had, but we had some special visitors I'd like to tell you about. Next slide. Last month, which technically is 2024, but we're going to talk about it. Governor Inslee came to visit us. He was promoting the working family tax credit, and we have a great community partner with Ren Locust. They provide tax service to the library during tax season and during the off season. We've worked with them to do financial literacy for kids programs. We've worked with them to promote this working family tax credit. And so the governor came to pay us a visit and learn about the great things that we're doing and Ren Locust is doing. So that was a very notable visit. And I get to make an announcement that I'm very excited about regarding financial literacy for children. The Three Creeks Community Library was awarded the Thinking Money for Kids grant from the ALA. So something to look forward to. In end of 2024, beginning 2025, we are going to be developing some financial literacy programs for kids. And our partner Ren Locust has graciously agreed to lend us their expertise in the subject as well. So we are very excited to announce that tonight. In addition to some good visits, there have been some not so good visits. Next slide. Somebody took an excursion into the library, literally.
And you can go see it if you haven't seen it live.
You can, but I want to give a great thank you to Jennifer for taking point with dealing with the insurance company and to our wonderful facilities team who have been working to get everything ready and fixed. We've ordered the bricks. They should arrive soon, like next week, probably. Yeah, they should arrive soon. I have no idea.
It's a number though.
It is a number. I should know that number. I don't. I apologize. But we'll count them if you'd like. We have ordered some bricks. They will be here. Right now, the insurance adjusters are working with the contractors over negotiating prices, but we look forward to having it repaired soon. Next slide. Numbers I actually know. New library cards. We gave out over 1,600 new library cards. Again, that's a huge increase from 2022, 44% more. And if you were to take 1,647 people and stack them all on top of each other, we would tower 1,000 feet over Mount St. Helens. So based on an average adult height of 66.5 inches.
So
Which
maybe-
I know some of them are kids, but guess what? Kids grow. And if we get, they don't. But, you know, even though there are some that are, we did the average height of the men, the average height of the women, we averaged that to get 66.5. And if we get the kids' library cards, they will grow up loving the library and then they will grow to the 66.5 inch average height. So that's how I figured out that number. But I want to tell you about, next slide, one of our new library cards. I went to the Vancouver Public Schools in-service days in August and talked to them about the library services that we could offer them as teachers. We talked about great books from 2023 they could put in their classrooms and help with their curriculum. And we talked about the educator library cards, which give teachers access to more books for an extended periods of time. And there is a teacher in there who lived in unincorporated Cowlitz. And she qualifies because she works in Vancouver. She didn't know that. She spent years teaching, watching all of her other teachers get library books, and her thinking she just couldn't. And she started crying right then. She came to the library the next day. She got her very first FVRL library card. And those students have had the benefit of FVRL resources this whole year. So that's my library card story of the year. Next slide. So curbside visits are down. Not everything is up. Curbside has been down, but we still had 468 curbside visits. Or if you drive down to Skyview High School, let's go beyond there. And library samplers where people can say, I want a bag of books picked by library staff about topics I'm interested in, the grade levels I'm interested in. Next slide. We didn't have so many, but we had 49, but that's enough to fill over 6 trunks full of books. I had some fun with the numbers this year. Next slide. Reference questions, over 6,000. We could write 45 almost SAT tests with just the reference questions. Next slide. Patron interactions, over 46,000. And if you took each interaction, you summarized it into one single line, we could write 17 Shakespeare plays of patron interaction. But next slide. Let me tell you about this patron interaction. Oh, I think you went one too far. Yeah. It was a patron, elderly patron who was recently diagnosed as becoming legally blind. His eyesight was failing. And his doctor had hooked him up with the Washington Talking Braille and Book Library, which is a great resource from the state. He had put the BARD app on his phone, but he couldn't navigate it because he couldn't see the screen, and the BARD app didn't work with Siri. And he didn't know what to do. So he came to the library. We were able to find some visual accessibility tools on his phone so we could access that. We were able to put Libby on his phone so we could access our audiobooks from that. And he had a list of several titles recommended by his doctor of how to cope with becoming legally blind. And by the end, we were able to put all but one on his phone. So he was able to recapture reading, which he thought was lost forever. So that's one of the reference questions that we had this year. Let's talk about programs. Next slide. 389 programs, 40,410 minutes, or enough to do almost 337 feature films, which is great because only 2 of them were actually films. This is a picture from Hazeldale Elementary School. We worked with them because we knew we were going to draw a huge crowd for the Reptile Man. We had over 400 people in the Hazeldale gym learning about reptiles that day. Next slide. But one of the stories I want to tell isn't about the huge crowds, it's about the connections, because that's what our programs do, is they connect the people in the community together. We had Chayak and Familia come and do a presentation for us. They are from the Andes region doing folklore, dancing, music, and they invite people from the audience to come up, audience participation, it's great. 2 of the families they invited were from Colombia. They hadn't known each other, they both recently moved here, and they were feeling alone and disconnected. And because they both came to this library program, they were able to meet and connect and get that little piece of hope. So that's one of the great things that we do with our programs. Next slide. We had a lot of people come, almost 7,000 people, or we could cast into the woods 387 times with the people who came to our programs. Next slide. But it's not just about the 7,000 people. It's about the communities that we're serving. So in September, we decided we wanted to reach out to the homeschool community. So we did a homeschool resource fair. We put it in the middle of the day of a school day, and we expected 10 to 30 people. We'd give them information about signing up for educator cards. We'd give them information about the library resources, how to order, put in requests for books that they were going to be using. We got 125 people that day, and we said, there is a need here. So this is from our first homeschool hangout that we started. It's a monthly program. And this is, we got a geologist to come in and bring his rock collection and show the kids all the different kinds of rocks. We had rock painting. We had one of our databases, the Power Knowledge Science, which has lots of great information and a really cool fossil game. And we were able to show that to parents and kids and give them just a chance to meet and connect and share great tips and tricks of what works best for their homeschool community. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about with programming. And now summer. We love summer at Three Creeks Library. We have the most summer participants of any other library in the district. Over 1,400 participants. We could fill almost 85 classrooms in Vancouver Public Schools with our summer reading participants. Next slide. But with our summer programs, there are people who can't come to the library. They have transportation issues, their parents are working, all sorts of reasons why they can't come. So this year, on Tuesdays in the library, we had performers. And on Thursdays, we went out to the communities. we worked with the Vancouver Parks and Recreation, and they were able to give us pavilion space every Thursday at a different community park. And we brought a program into the community. And so these are pictures from one of the events we did. We had people who followed us from park to park each week. But we also had people who, they were like, yeah, we couldn't come to the library, but we can come to the park in our neighborhood. And so we were able to bring the library to them. And next slide. I have to give a huge thank you to our staff. We have the best staff in the district. This isn't all of them. These are just some of them. And they are the best staff in the district. They come every day with a huge smile. They help patrons with all sorts of informational needs or tear-jerking stories. And they are here every day, willing to help, willing to serve. And they are the reason for all of those numbers. They really. So it was optional to have your picture included, and they could choose how much of themselves was in the picture. And then one last thank you to our friends of the library, of which we have some today. They are our rock. They are our community supporters and advocates. They are our fundraisers. They are the heart of the library. So I want to say a huge thank you to our friends. And then the next slide is just questions. What questions do you have? Are you ready for questions?
Right, right.
Vikram, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very nice presentation, and the numbers were pretty good. I would just like to say that, I definitely like all the programs that you are doing, and we should include more, of the cultural and diversity programs in our library systems. And, as we had one commenter also saying, Women's Day, we should include that too in our library, and as many days as we should be celebrating to include all the diversity in our system. Second was the educator card that you mentioned. I know Evergreen School District is also going through a lot of budget cuts. So if there is a way to connect with them and see if we can help them through the library to get to, various books if they need any, would be great. And general, point, all these numbers are very good. If we can also include the number of households or the total population that is served within the region, that would be very helpful number to go with.
One of
Thank
the one of the difficulties with figuring out the population Three Creeks served is because we have a lot of overlap. We aren't a single town. We share patrons between the downtown branch, the mall branch, the Cascade Park branch. Some of our patrons come from libraries that are like in the center or Woodland or Ridgefield. When they're down shopping at Fred Meyer's, they'll come and visit us. So it's easy to say these are how many people in the district. It's hard to say these are how many people we serve at Three Creeks, just because we don't have strict boundaries. And thank you for your comments about diversity in the schools. We're definitely keeping the schools in our thoughts as we're watching the budget cuts and the librarian cuts. And just a shout out, we do have a display on March is Women's History Month. It's also memoirs. So we have a combined display right now, right in front of our door on women memoirs for Memoir March and Women's History Month. So.
Any other questions or discussion? I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to the business portion of our meeting. First, we'll start with the 2024 reserve allocation with Jennifer.
Well, after all of that energy, I hope we can sustain this topic. But yeah, it was a very creative presentation, and thank you for that, Elizabeth. So annually, the board is to look at the reserve budget and make any allocations needed. And so you have kind of three separate documents in your packet on this. One is a narrative on the recommendations for assignment of cash reserve. There's a spreadsheet that gives an overview of the changes, and then ultimately, if you so choose, a resolution of this allocation. So I'm going to just go through it at a high level, if that's okay. And obviously, our Finance and Facilities Committee looked at this last week and has moved it forward to the board meeting for review. So our cash reserve balance January 1st, 2024 was $19,056,296. And of that, there are 0 additional dollars to be assigned. And actually, we had a reduction in cash at the end of 2023 of over $1.8 million. This is due to the fact that in 2023, we had spent $2.5 million out of our reserve budget. And out of our operating budget, we had $615,000 of excess revenues over expenditures. So if you take the 2.5 million minus 615,000, you get to the $1.8 million reduction. This is the first year that FVRL has seen a reduction in cash since prior to 2019. So I'll just make a comment because we've heard a lot about this in our public comment section that we continue to add to reserves for projects. And while that may have been the case during earlier years, that is no longer the case. And we do expect to continue to reduce the cash balance as we move forward due to approved projects such as the Woodland Community Project being built. So the operational fund, the recommendation is to continue with the balance that we have as of 1/1/24 in the fund. And you'll know that Christine just mentioned that that fund is already being used due to the fact that we're not receiving revenue. But once the revenue comes back, that fund will build back up. But the target that we have, I'm comfortable with at this point for maintaining that. Moving on to the organizational objectives, capital repairs and maintenance. These are repairs and maintenance that are of a capital nature, such as roof replacements, elevator upgrades, and mechanical systems in our facilities. So even though like this facility has been around since 2002, and we'll talk about it a little later again, but should the HVAC system, that's heat, ventilation, and air conditioning, we like that part too. We like all that. If that were to break down, in order to replace units, we're talking tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the facility. We don't always have those funds in our operating fund, and so that's why we build up this type of reserve for those kinds of expenses. When Dave, our facilities director, brings me these repair quotes, I about fall off my chair most of the time. Not because it's Dave, but just because of the price of these kinds of repairs. And they are big numbers, Elizabeth, so you might enjoy them. I didn't think I'd get any laughs tonight, so thank you for that. It's made my day. And so I'm recommending that we increase that particular objective by $250,000 to bring it to $1 million. I do anticipate that fund will need to be used. If not this year, it will need to be used in 2025. So that's the recommendation. Replacement of vehicles. As you know, we have courier vans, we have facilities trucks, we have outreach vans, and we have cars throughout the district for the purposes of outreach. And currently, we have 22 vehicles with the average age of 7.9 years. And we also have two 2018 bookmobiles. Bookmobiles are extremely expensive to buy in the 6-digit figure. So I'm recommending we increase this budget, but I also will note that I am evaluating our cars and our fleet to determine whether ongoing the approach we've had is the correct approach. Meaning in some of our, for some of our locations that have vehicles, when I look at how many miles they've traveled for the year, it may be more cost efficient to pay mileage to the staff versus having a vehicle where we buy the vehicle, we maintain the vehicle, we pay insurance on the vehicle. But there's a lot that goes into that as we think through it. So while I'm adding some funds to this as costs continue to rise of vehicles as well, I think we need continued analysis on what actually is needed as we go forward. Obviously, our courier vans and our bookmobiles and our facilities fleet is very important. I don't see any of that changing. So it's more on the vehicles that we use for other purposes that I'm talking about. On objective 3, these are for capital projects, and this is what we spend a lot of time talking about. And so, Marianne, this kind of goes to the question you had earlier about, are there more projects that are needed? We don't, do we have funds to do that, et cetera. So what you will see here is I am recommending that we put 1.5 million into the Washougal project. That was something you actually voted for in the 2024 budget. That was the exact dollar amount that you voted for, but that money has to come from somewhere. And since there's no money being added to the reserve budget in 2024, it's reallocating, and that's why the spreadsheet's helpful, that you can see all the pluses and minuses. In this case, this is the project that is next up after Woodland. It's the one we are furthest along. We have all of the drawings, all of the schematics that have been done. Community engagement was done. We have lots of like a flyover video on the website, for example. We also have the foundation, thankfully partnering to go and ask for additional funding from the state for the Library Capital Improvement Program funding. And then in addition, for District 17, which Washougal is part of, we have the legislative support and are asking for $5 million for a special funding request from the legislator. That's not going to happen this year because there weren't those funds to give. But I have been told that that support will continue and will continue to ask for additional funds in future years. So there's a lot of work that has already gone into this, and we are going to continue to work to fundraise anywhere possible to look at grant opportunities, et cetera. But that would be a project that we should continue to move forward on. The Woodland Community Library is being built, so we are on the hook, people, and we're excited about it. It's going to be wonderful. I have put in a bit more contingency money into that project to ensure that we can cross the finish line. However, if you're coming to the Love Your Library event and you want to donate any money on top of it and sponsor anything, I know the foundation will take that and turn around and help us to reduce anything we can from our reserve budget. So for example, if somebody walked in the door right now and said, I want to give you $1 million for the Woodland project, that would be a wonderful thing. But if not, we're building it, so we have to be able to pay for it. Then we get to Grand Boulevard. That's the operations center. That project is complete. And so we can close out that budget. And so that's going to help us pay for another project, the $893,000. Brush Prairie. So Brush Prairie has land that the district owns. And while that is wonderful and it was a great price. The issue is we don't have funding to move that project forward. There's no concept, there's been no community engagement, et cetera. So my recommendation right now is to defund that project because we need those funds for current projects. And then branch refresh projects. So we have to really take care of our current facilities. So this particular facility, and I won't go through all the numbers because you got to hear them tonight. It's an extremely busy facility with high circulation. It's a great location. It's very central to lots of things, but it's aging and it needs a refresh. And what needs to happen first is for us to work with an architect to say, here's the things that we're seeing that we need. How can we put a project together so that we know what kind of cost we're dealing with? And so that will require some level of funding first. Then once we have a project in mind, I think this is another opportunity for us to work with our foundation and friends to talk about how to build a campaign and find other ways of supporting it beyond what's available in the budget the FVRL holds. The other place that we're looking is a possibility of how to expand our North Bonneville location to a self-service library, much like Yakel and Yale. And that's simply by how we deploy technology and make some really small improvements in that space. So we're not talking big money, but enough that it would come out of the capital reserves budget. All of these projects that I'm talking about on any refresh projects, we would bring to the board for approval before we go forward. It's more of just putting some money in the bucket so some of that work can happen to figure out cost. The next objective is on my page right here. It used to be called innovation. And when I came, many of you talked to me about the fact that, well, we don't know what innovation means. Innovation could mean everything, anything, everything. And then our accountants told me that the state auditors had the same concern. So I decided to rename what the objective is to technology replacement and upgrades. And a lot of that is about being innovative, but it's also about real things that have to be updated. Things like phone systems and servers and all these things you don't see that make our systems work. And they're very pricey tickets on them. Again, much of this would come before you as a vote, but to just begin to build that budget because we know we have some replacements that will come up in future years. And then objective 5 was called the Budget Stabilization Fund. And I say in this document that it may be seen as duplicative because that is what I've heard. That there's a feeling that we have an operational fund to carry the 60 to 90-day balance, and that this fund was to stabilize the budget. And they could be seen as the same. They don't have to be. Many local governments have a budget stabilization fund beyond their operational fund. However, in order to fund the projects that we have, I believe it is important to reallocate those funds at this point. And that's basically just following the pluses and minuses as we've gone through the description is how we get there. So that fund would be zeroed out. So the overall impact of the total reserve plan for objectives 1 through 5 remains the same dollar amount overall that we started the year with, $10,740,426, but it reallocates some funds to different places of need and continues to be that same balance going forward. The operational fund that I'm stating here is as of January 1st. Know that it's already been reduced like we talked about, but it will grow back. But for the purposes of this illustration, I use January 1st. Any questions? Comments?
Go ahead, Vikram.
So this budget stabilization fund, if I recall, that was more for like when the, property taxes go down, right? Your
Mhm.
income is low, and during that time, this, this reserve fund will be used. Is that not the case,
Yeah.
or do you need that anymore?
That could be the case, that could have been the reason why you started the fund, and it could be a case where we go into an economic decline and people aren't paying their taxes. And so the implication of moving these funds to projects are, should that happen, we have our operational fund and that's it to fall back on. I think this goes in line with our discussions about, as we look forward, what this means on thinking about when a levy lid lift is going to be in our future, and what that means, because even if we have this $1.8 million, should there be some economic decline, that's really not enough to even sustain. It's about a month and a half of our bills at this point. So we really have to find some other ways of shoring up operationally how we're going to move forward. But I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so should that be moved into the operational fund and increase that to take care of the, if there is an economic downturn and deflationary environment like we had in, 2008, 2018, like they keep recurring every, 5 to 10 years.
Well, that's certainly up to the board to decide that, but that's not what my recommendation is. Based on the fiscal management policy, the operational fund target is 60 to 90 days of operational expenditures. And so what I showed you on the spreadsheet is that target is $8.1 million and we have 8.3. So we're just over our target of 90 days with that amount. But it's certainly, it's at the board's discretion of what you feel is best for the district. The only thing I would definitely caution is the Woodland Community Library must be funded at the level I have here. And we don't have to vote on this tonight. We can certainly entertain questions and bring it back next month.
And could we email you questions as well? It seems like this is going to be
You can talk to me 24/7, Mary Ann.
careful. I get up at about 4:35.
Me too.
Okay. The one thing that I've been hesitate about talking about, but I think this is appropriate time. Some of our communities have really given land and money. Other of these communities are just depending on us to do everything. Is there kind of a priority that if there's all this money coming from a community that, is willing to support beyond the property tax that we're limited to, how do we deal with that?
So that would be a good discussion to have in the future. Maybe that's a good retreat item.
Yeah.
But what I would tell you is the projects that we're working on, Woodland and Washougal in particular, were part of the facilities master plan that we have not completed yet. And
How
so
old is that?
I can't remember right this second if it's 2010 or 2013. 2013. 2013. So it's almost over 10 years old at this point, and we're still working on those particular projects.
Okay.
So we do need to update our facilities master planning. And as you know, we need to go and perform a new strategic planning process. And so those align well to do those at a similar time. So we should be looking at doing those in the fall. And that helps us to both look at project facility needs from a higher level of not who's paying what, but what are the needs to serve our population. And then from that, we can have further discussions about how prioritization would happen, just like they did back in 2013.
Mhm.
I know that one of the things that I've seen are the TIFs that are going to be causing us to lose quite a bit of funding.
Right.
So I think we're going to have to also take that into consideration, how much we're going to be losing and whether we can get any exemption I've not heard how that's been going.
Yeah, there's no, we're a special junior taxing district here. And the law regarding tax increment financing does not have any opt-in or opt-out for special tax, keep saying that, junior taxing districts, meaning we have no choice. So right now, the Port of Ridgefield is considering implementation of their TIF. And we talked about that last month. And while we might go and say this has a negative impact on our district, there's no way to opt in or opt out as a junior taxing district. That is something that fire districts and hospital districts are really lobbying hard to be able to opt out. But at this point, that has not made its way into the language. The language is more about the need for those proposed districts, TIP districts, to study the impact on the other taxing districts and report back to the legislature.
For it, is that correct?
They're done. And so that's what happened is the language got pretty watered down. The cities are very interested in maintaining the ability to have tax increment financing districts across the state. And so they were the louder voice. So I think I do know the number offhand with the two TIF districts that are already in place, Port of Vancouver and City of Ridgefield. And now with likely the Port of Ridgefield, that's a $10.8 million impact to any growth in revenue in those TIF areas for FVRL in particular.
Are there any further questions or discussion on this? Is there interest in postponing this to the next meeting?
I'd like to see it postponed either to the next meeting. Is that our
All right.
retreat?
No,
that's in
next
September,
month.
right?
Yeah. So I move that we postpone the capital reserve plan until the next meeting.
Second. Is that going to leave any of our projects harmed? Okay.
No, it's fine.
Any further discussion? Okay, I move this to a vote, please.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole. Penny Love Hensley.
Aye.
Vikram Katwani.
Aye.
Megan Dugan.
Aye.
Marie Coffey.
Aye.
And Christy Morgan.
Aye, motion passes. Next up is the, let's see, policy, where am I? I lost my place. All right. Next up is policy committee, the display and exhibits policy.
Sure. So the display and exhibits policy is in your packet with track changes of the suggested changes to just clarify the policy that's been in place. You saw this for first review last month. Any questions?
Is there a motion to adopt the display and exhibits policy as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, move this to a roll call vote, please.
Marie Coffey.
Aye.
Megan Dugan.
Aye.
Vikram Katwani.
Aye.
Penny Love Hensley.
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole. And Christy Morgan.
Aye, the motion passes. Next up is public bulletin boards and distribution areas policy.
Again, this is a policy that you saw for first review last month. This is a policy that has had some substantial changes to it to really clarify both public bulletin boards and distribution areas. But the policy committee also has spent a lot of time reviewing this as well. So are there any questions?
Hearing no questions, is there a motion to adopt the public bulletin boards and distribution areas policy as presented?
So moved. Seconded.
Any further discussion? Okay, move this to a roll call vote, please.
Vikram Katwani,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Marion Duncan Cole,
A.
Penny Love Hensley,
Aye.
and Christy Morgan.
Aye. Motion to approve the public bulletin boards and distribution areas policy is adopted. And finally, we move on to the fiscal management policy.
So last month, when we were talking through the financials, Christine Smith presented to you the issue of the auditing officer. And the way the policy was written is both the executive director and all 7 board members were auditing officers. This is a redundancy and is not required by the RCW. And so the recommendation was to remove all of the board members as auditing officers. An auditing officer is also required to be bonded. And so that has happened for the executive director. And so this, while you didn't have a first reading of this particular policy, we did discuss it, and it's very minimal changes to really just make that particular change. So I'm hoping that you would be able to adopt this policy change to reflect our practice.
Any questions or discussion?
I move that we adopt the fiscal management policy as presented.
I'll second.
Oh, okay. Vikram, please go ahead.
Sorry. So in this, there is a segregation of duties mentioned, but if we are short on staff, how would we achieve that? There would be only one executive director for most of the tasks.
That's correct. So, you know, if I am not available, I can designate, appoint a deputy or another director to sit in my stead. So currently, I have 2 people that I'm able to, should I not be available, that will stand in, and that's Justin Keeler or Lynn Caldwell. Once there's a deputy director in place, that person would also be in that chain. But as far as separation of duties, it's, while we've had a reduction in staff from 5 to 2 in our finance department, while I'd love to go jump in and roll my sleeves up and cut checks, I can't do that. And so that's why we brought in the CPA firm to fill in for all of the gaps, because I have to stay separate and apart in order to audit all of the information. Does that answer your question, Vikram?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a second for the motion on the table?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I move this to a roll call vote, please.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Vikram Katwani,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Marianne Duncan Cole,
Aye.
Penny Love Hensley,
Aye.
Christy Morgan.
Aye. Motion to approve the fiscal management policy is adopted. I think 30 minutes, but. The Fort Vancouver Regional Library District Board of Trustees will now meet in executive session to discuss litigation and collective bargaining as allowed by RCW 4230-110 and 4230-410. The Board of Trustees will be in executive session for 30 minutes or until 8:45 p.m. The Board of Trustees is not expected to take further action following the executive session. So this time, we will have everyone step out and we're going to meet in here in executive session. And when the time is up, we'll invite everyone back into this room if you wish to stay. Thank you.
Well, they let me in.
All right, welcome back. Thank you all. There is no further action to be taken tonight, so we're going to move on to board comments. I just wanted to start off by saying a thank you to Elizabeth Moss for having us. And thank you all for the time you spend setting up every meeting wherever we are and staying late, tearing it down. I appreciate it. Any other board comments?
I was going through the organizational reports and I was very happy to see all the different and diverse programming that's going on at all the different libraries. They've had some that have done tax information. They've had miniature ponies in. There was a Chinese museum that came in and was talking about the importance of things. And I just thank the managers for the job that they have been doing to provide this diverse programming for everybody.
I have to echo that.
Yeah, and also your presentation. I loved your numbers. Thank you.
Any other board comments?
Thank you all.
Is there a motion? Oh, the next regular meeting will be Monday, April 15th, 2024 at 6 p.m., hybrid and in person. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Any objections? Hearing none, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.